strengthened and Russia's ultimate goals are not achieved. I am honored today to be in company of my European colleagues to show our solidarity and unity. And I will thank you once again for joining us for this evening. And now I would like to ask the Ambassador of Ukraine, His Excellency Markian Chuchuk, to take the floor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Today we gather to commemorate a solemn and painful anniversary. 4 years have passed since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. First and foremost, let me sincerely thank the Embassy of Poland and Ambassador Maciej Pisarski in person for so generously hosting this event. Thank you, Maciej. I extend my special thanks to the EU delegation and Ambassador Raimundas Pirogus. My appreciations goes to all our co-organizers, an impressive coalition of great European nations led by truly outstanding ambassadors. Thank you. I am deeply grateful to all our guests, whose presence is an important sign of solidarity with Ukraine. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has now lasted longer than the war between the fascist and communist regimes during the years 1941 to 1945. The figures of this war are shocking. Russia's losses in killed and wounded have far exceeded 1 million people. And what has Russia gained for this terrible cost? Over the past 2 years, Russian forces have occupied about 1.5% of Ukrainians' territory. Their daily advance has often been measured in tens of meters, slower than during trench warfare in the First World War. The Russian people are paying with their lives, not for real military success, but for the ideological illusions of their leaders. The Kremlin's obsession with imperial greatness, combined with a complete disregard for human life, is the true driving force in this war. Ukraine continues to defend its freedom and independence in full accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. The price we pay is enormous. Lives lost, children abducted, millions of refugees and IDPs, massive destruction of our economy. During the winter of 2026, when outside temperatures dropped below minus 20 degrees, Russian terrorists launched massive missile and drone attacks against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Hundreds of thousands of civilians were left without heating, electricity, and water. These war crimes of Russia fall under the definition of the Genocide Convention. At the same time, diplomatic efforts continue. Let me be clear. Ukraine wants peace and is ready for diplomacy. President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared this many times. But peace through diplomacy requires political will and compromises from both sides. These conditions are currently absent on the Russian side. Some peace plans presented by international mediators proposed transferring to Russia not only the currently occupied territories, but also some lands that Ukraine has successfully defended for 12 years. For Ukrainians, such solutions are perceived not as a real peace, but as a temporary appeasement of the aggressor. The consequences of such a deal would be grave. The survival of criminal Russian regime, the justification of aggression, the legalization of annexation, and the encouragement of new territorial ambitions by the aggressor. Would such a peace deal create a brave new world, better and safer than the old one? There is no reason to believe so. The international community is disoriented. I might say, using a buzzword, discombobulated, because no new fair order is imagined from the ruins of the old one. Instead, we are entering an era of arbitrary dominance by major powers, combined with armed competition among them. Law is being replaced by power, principles are being replaced by force. What will the Ukrainian people do then? Despite heavy losses, despite misery and pain, despite a crisis of the world order, Ukraine will not give up. This war is existential for us, and we are fighting not only for our freedom. Ukraine has become an important contributor to international security by containing an aggressive and terrorist regime. Therefore, support for Ukraine is not charity. It is a rational investment in shared security. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is waging a colonial war in the 21st century, while cynically using anti-colonial rhetoric in its relations with the global South. Discussing anti-colonialism or global or regional security with an aggressor is like discussing vegetarianism with a man-eating bear. Pakistan has consistently supported the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity of states and has never supported war. We are grateful to our Pakistani friends for their commitment to a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. We count on Pakistan's active role as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council and on its international authority in advancing a just peace in Ukraine. We do not ask nations that have declared their neutrality to choose between East and West. Neutrality between power blocs is understandable. However, we urge them not to remain passive observers of aggression and war crimes. Those who seek peace for their own countries cannot remain neutral in these matters. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine is firmly determined to become a part of a united Europe, which represents a normative alternative to imperialism and autocracy. There is no doubt that on its own defense and prosperity, Europe must become even stronger militarily and politically, and must learn to respond to global challenges with the language of power when necessary. Ukraine sees itself as a pillar of Europe in achieving these goals. I conclude my remarks with the famous call that became a symbol of Poland's struggle for independence and an expression of solidarity among nations that resisted imperial oppression. За нашу и вашу вольность. For our freedom and yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And let me say once again that this event is about solidarity. So I would like to once again acknowledge the presence of the representatives of other like-minded countries. I know that the representatives of United States are with us. If there are also other countries, we welcome you very warmly. And now it's my pleasure to ask the ambassador of the European Union, His Excellency Raimundas Korablis, to take the floor on behalf of our European family.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, I am honored to address you today on behalf of Team Europe at the Solidarity with Ukraine event held by Embassy of Poland. I extend my gratitude to Ambassador Maciej Pirsarski and his team for hosting this important function. Sad occasion. 4 years of full-fledged, unjustified, brutal, unprovoked invasion, aggression. But the war continues since 2014, and it is one of the longest war in Europe during 200 years. Tens of thousands who died, many more wounded, millions of lives destroyed. Also, rule of law, international rules, international order also destroyed, or at least under the risk. Our gathering here is a proof of our shared commitment to foster peace and cooperation. These principles have been central to the European project since its inception. They are as relevant as ever, especially in light of the formidable security challenge we are facing today. Challenge on a scale not seen since the days of the Cold War. 4 years ago, the unprovoked and brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia represented a seismic shift that has shattered our assumptions regarding the peace in Europe. This is not merely a conflict on our doorstep, it's a direct challenge to the core principles underpinning the international order and the United Nations Charter, principles as sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. In response to Russia's brutal aggression, the European Union has adeptly combined diplomacy, sanctions, humanitarian assistance, and military support, ensuring Ukraine's right to defend itself. Ukraine and its people have demonstrated great resilience and a commitment to a just and lasting peace, grounded in security, sovereignty, and prosperity. The European Union stands fully behind Ukraine and is actively contributing to the United States-led peace efforts, notwithstanding President Putin's obvious reluctance to make peace. In fact, in the last months, Russia has taken a clear path of escalation, adhering to maximalistic positions, increased its attacks against civilians across Ukraine, mercilessly attacking energy and transport infrastructure during harsh winter conditions, leaving millions without any heating in the coldest winter since the start of the war. For this reason, the international community, including Pakistan, must work together to keep the pressure on Russia so that it engages meaningfully and credibly in efforts to end the aggression that it started. On our part, we have demonstrated the continuing supporting Ukraine so that it is in the strongest position possible before, during, and after ceasefire. What is more, we are stepping up pressure on Russia with strong economic measures and sanctions. In this context, It is essential to reduce Russia's capacity to finance its war, which to a large extent relies on the revenue earned from oil and gas sales. Let me emphasize that the European Union has reduced by 90% energy imports from Russia, and we're looking at further measures over the next year, notably a complete LNG import ban. We have also introduced an import ban on refined petroleum products derived from Russian crude processed in third countries, but also other measures to reduce the possibility of Russia's war machine is taken. While we do not question Pakistan's right to commercial relationship with Russia, we need Pakistan to support us to substantially reduce Russia's capacity to guarantee all revenues to fuel its war, to generate all revenues to fuel its war machine. Ladies and gentlemen, against the backdrop of Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine, let me draw your attention to the fallout from the conflict on Europe's security. We are currently battling hybrid threats, cyber attacks, disinformation, interference in domestic processes, recurring encroachments and provocations in the airspace, and weaponization of energy and supply chains. In addition, we are witnessing growing risks of conventional attacks against Europe and European Union members, which have not been since the Cold War era. These challenges blur the line between war and peace, demanding resilience from us. Therefore, we are sparing no efforts to bolster our defense capabilities, diversify energy sources, strengthen our cyber capabilities, safeguard our democratic institutions, and forge closer cooperation with international partners. We greatly value Pakistan's role in promoting regional stability, peacekeeping, counterterrorism, multilateralism, and climate resilience. We expect that Pakistan will stay strong, promoting multilateralism, rule of law, the principles of the United Charter, in particular bearing in mind its role as non-permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations, as well membership of the United Nations Human Rights Council. The European Union remains steadfast, strengthening its partnership with Pakistan. Therefore, our unity and determination, together with the international community, including Pakistan, are vital in maintaining pressure on Russia to compel it to engage meaningfully in efforts to end the aggression they initiated. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine faces brutal, unprovoked aggression from Putin's Russia. I mentioned already, tens of thousands are dead and many more are wounded, both military and civilians. Millions of people suffer and countless lives are destroyed. Ukrainians defend their state, their land. At the same time, they defend values, the rule of law, and the multilateral order. They defend Europe. We must help